dropped out of college when I was in music. It just wasn't right for me. I saw I was wasting money. I realized that it wasn't how I was going to become a professional musician.
Right.
So I was working at the shitty restaurant, and I got fired, and I really needed the job. I was not in good financial stead. I was in trouble, and I got fired over the silliest thing. It was the time when the tsunami hit Southeast Asia.
2006?
Yeah, 2006. It was right around then. And they wanted to do a fundraiser for the tsunami, which is good.
The restaurant did?
Yeah. So the idea behind it, which is kind of backwards, was that all the waiters would donate their tips.
Fuck.
Would you think the restaurant would be like, okay, we'll donate some of the proceeds, but no, the waiters donated their tips. And at that time, I was only, I think, working like
And that was it?
That was it.
That was his proposal.
Well, that was the manager's proposal. Like, it was, it was a good-hearted idea, but
sure, but it has to be a collective.
Well, that was just it. And
otherwise, it's the waiters' union that is supporting
precisely.
it, and that's it.
So, and of course, my big mouth always got me in trouble, which is why I now host a podcast.
And that's why we're good friends.
Exactly, because you gotta say. Oh, actually, I have some funny stories about that Ben and I were talking about. So, I confronted them because I only had 2 shifts a week there, the Friday and the Saturday, which were the kind of the money nights.
Sure.
And I was working at this climbing shop, and I was barely making ends meet. It was really tight at the time, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do next with my life. I'm trying to become a musician at the time, and so when I said look, I need my tips for that night, I can't do it, and then they said, well, then we have to take you off. I'm like, yeah, but I need to work that's not fair, and she ended up firing me for it, which I'm sure you could have taken that to the labor board regardless. Sure. So I'm like on the cusp of bankruptcy. I've got a little bit of cash in my pocket. And it just so happens that same night, my good buddy Conrad, who I've known for years, is one of my oldest friends. He was in town, and he was staying with me. And that was the day he had come. I was like, well, I'm going to go work at the restaurant. And I come back. So I come back, and I come back, within an hour of leaving. He was like, oh, what's up?
Did you have a quick shift?
I was like, I got fired.
Oh, man.
So we're sitting around, and we're both kind of crazy kids. We'd always done crazy shit when we were young. Just adventurous stuff, not criminal stuff or anything. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how it came about, but he just said hey, one of us said, it was probably me, I'm guessing, let's move to Squamish and we'll be climbers. All right. I'd been there once on a climbing trip the summer before, maybe 2 summers before. So in my mind, it's BC, it'll be beautiful. So we just packed up our shit. I put all my stuff in the hallway with a little put money under the door thing, everything I owned basically. I took my climbing gear and some clothes, and my camping gear, right? And I left, and I didn't get my rent deposit back, and we threw my mattress off of the back balcony. Nice. Right, just chaos. And some people bought my stuff and put some money under the door. Some people stole my stuff. That was in the hall. Anyways, we just took a bus trip and fucked off. Now we
How
get
old
there.
are you?
I'm 2006. I would have been.
Yeah. Okay.
I was born in 82. Don't make me do math.
Yeah.
So that's
Never
about
mind.
20.
Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah. 25.
25 roughly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm gonna pretend like that math worked out in my head.
No, that
right now,
didn't
people
work.
are screaming.
Yeah.
I think it's okay. So I love how we have to do this. 8 plus 10 is 18. Plus 6 is 24.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow, that
was
hurts.
close.
Yeah. My math tutor, Mrs. Gates, is rolling her eyes right now.
Yeah.
So we up and moved to Squamish.
Mine expected that answer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've got maybe $500 in my pocket, and our thought was, okay, we'll go there, we'll camp for a bit.
Sure.
I'll find a job because I've worked in climbing shops and whatever, and he'll find a job, and then we'll get a place.
Yeah.
Organics. And he was going back to tree planting eventually was the plan. He wasn't sure. So we make the trip together, and we get there, and we realize we're morons because it's January.
Oh, man.
And I had only been to BC once at the time. I was still quite young, and I thought that it was just nice all year. Well,
Vancouver.
Yeah. And this is north of Vancouver. So for those of you who don't know, January at this time of year is pouring slushy rain, and it's maybe 5 degrees, if not minus 5 degrees. And our plan is to camp. So I knew a lot of the caves in the area from climbing trips. So we set up shop in a cave, which I lived in for probably about 4 months.
Really?
A little. Okay, there's another part to the story. So, and this is one of the things that people don't realize about homelessness. Homelessness isn't always that you you lost your job, your wife kicked you out, you got on drugs, whatever. Often homelessness comes about from poor planning.
Right.
And then you just don't have a contingency plan.
Sure.
So we had put ourselves in that situation where I didn't have a contingency plan. And it turned out I couldn't get a job right away. And it turned out we didn't have enough money to get a place.
Right.
So our little camping trip turned into a bit of an ordeal.
Yeah, survival trip.
Exactly. So at first it was fun. We're in this cave and we're camping out every night and we're trying to stay dry. Sometimes well, sometimes not so well. Camps or caves are moist, even though they're sheltered from rain. And there's bugs and there's vermin. I've got some crazy stories about shit like that. I tried to kill a skunk with a knife once. Anyways, actually, I'll tell some of the stories. So
yeah, that's a good one.
There's some crazy shit that happened. So, we're bathing in the river. This glacial river. We're walking into town, like we're by
Which
the
seems
chief.
romantic.
It seems romantic at first,
but then I'm like,
but you get worn down.
Yeah,
and
the first time.
Yes, and then there came a point when it wasn't a choice anymore.
Right.
And I didn't have money to go back, and I didn't have money to start back up, and I didn't know what I was going to do. So I ended up getting a job at this one shop, and I'm back and forth. And I'm trying to stay clean, and like. At first it's fun, but then it starts to wear you down. And then I got tired of being dirty all the time, like a couple months in. And then like I'm bathing in the Dairy Queen washroom with the door locked while people are trying to kick the door down. I'm getting really poor. I'm stealing pizza pretzels from the grocery store.
I was going to say, what did you do?
I'm sitting in
other
Starbucks all day
to eat?
Yeah, I'm sitting in the Starbucks all day to try to stay warm because it's still January, February, March.
No, it's cold in Van.
And it's getting bad. And then my friend ended up having enough. He left to go tree planting, and we had a lot of fun times too. But even people in terrible situations have good times.
Sure.
So I ended up stealing a bunch of building materials in this one neighborhood and trying to build a shack on the other side of this river. And my idea was that I was going to build kind of like a little shanty house for a bit better shelter. So if somebody was building some new development, I would like take materials. I was a dirtbag.
Yeah.
For years, people don't do things because they want to, and they do them because they have to do them. I didn't have a lot of other options at the time.
Some people do things because they want to, but
that's an acting debate too. Is like everybody does what they think is right or right for them at that time. Yeah,
they justify it. For whatever.
Nobody's
reason.
like, I'm going to do something bad.
Yeah,
it's like you're doing something because you think it's right.
Yeah, hopefully.
Or you think it's right for you.
Right.
So I built this place, and it was kind of a tree fort with a like chipboard floor, and I hadn't built a roof yet, so I was going to camp out there for the first time. And I moved all my stuff from the cave, and I camp out there, and it just fucking pours rain. So I'm in a tarp, kind of on the ground at first, and then I was in a tarp on this platform. And now the water started to seep down the trees and seep into the chipboard, which is not waterproof, and then absorb into my sleep mat. And this is 5 degrees. It's pouring rain one night. It's 3 a.m. and I'm freezing to death, like literally to death. I get up to go back across this little creek, and it's a spring flow. And it was exactly like Into the Wild, where the river has, for those of you that don't know these glacial rivers and creeks, as the snow melts in the mountains, it starts coming and running down. And what was just kind of a quiet creek becomes a massive roaring river.
Yeah.
So I fucked up. Now, unlike the Chris McCandless story, where I just had to walk about a mile through the bush to a footbridge and cross it, but it's still a pain in the ass. So it's about 4 a.m. and I'm doing this. I'm trying to pack up my shit. I'm freezing to death. Like I'm shaking so hard I can barely move. And the only option I had at the time was the shop I worked at. So I go to the shop. I was like kind of assistant managing it. So I had the keys and I had the alarm code. And there's only about 3 of us that worked there at the time. And I put in the code. And I went inside and slept inside on the shelves in the back. I borrowed a sleeping bag from the display and that, and then I spent the night there. And then it kind of like, I wasn't trying to do anything deceitful or wrong, but I didn't have a place to stay and I didn't have other options. So I started staying there after about, I think I was maybe 4 months roughly into the cave and then the shanty shack and that. So I started staying there in the back of the shop. And what I would do, I would close the shop at night, there was like often a free yoga class around that time at this one place. Then I'd sit in Starbucks for about like till close, hang around. Usually I'd have to wait outside for an hour or so while the owner would close the shop.
And he had no idea?
Yeah, he had no idea. And then I'd come back in, shut off the alarm, lock the door. And it was the kind where you could turn on the alarm but be inside.
Right.
So I'd do that, go hide in the back on this shelf that was about 10 feet high. And, kind of make a barricade so you couldn't see me if you did come in. Then I knew he would come in the morning to do work. So I would set an alarm to get up really early. Or I had the contingency plan that I knew he would always go to Starbucks to get coffee when he came in. And so when he did that, then I would go at the back door. Right. And I'd hear the alarm go off as he came in, which would wake me up. Anyway, so I did that for a couple months. And it was, it was terrible. It was humiliating. I was a fucking dirtbag and I had no options. Now, what I ended up doing to kind of get out of it was a series of things that I had a young artist thing in Edmonton that I said I would do about a year before while I was still singing. And so I was still on. I hadn't canceled it. It was just like a training program that was that had no tuition, and there was somebody who was going to let me stay at their place, a patron. So I knew if I could get there, I could do that, and I'd have a place to stay. So I had a bike at the time, this piece of shit mountain bike with a front shock absorber. Yeah. And so my idea was I'm going to bike to Edmonton. I'm going to do a bike tour. I'd never done one before. And it's for those of you who don't know, it's called a hardtail bike. So it's a mountain bike.
Sure.
It's not.
Which you need if you're going to try to ride from Van to Edmonton.
Well, no, but it's highway. So you need a road bike.
Yeah, that's true.
It's so damn
I didn't
slow.
know which you were taking there.
So I took the Duffy Highway North, which is one of the most treacherous highways you can possibly take. It's brutal. There's a famous bike ride that goes up. And it was great. I get about maybe halfway through the trip and my Achilles is blown out.
Oh my God. Man.
So now I'm hitchhiking with this bike, which is kind of the only valuable possession I own,
right,
to get to Edmonton. And it's going badly. And finally this one guy picks me up in this crazy, modified camper van. He was clearly a sketchy dude. The one thing I remember is he had a hole in the ground, which in retrospect, I was like, oh, he's got a hole in the ground. But now I look back, I'm like, oh, that was to drop drugs if the cops came. Okay. Right, that's like a drop hole.
Sure. And it's better than bodies.
Yeah, and luckily he was driving all the way to Edmonton, so it was great. But the one thing I remember of the trip home, and I had left most of my stuff in Squamish. I gave people my things and left stuff in the garbage. I had nothing. I had a bag. It was what I could fit on my bike. And so I did that, and I just remember one thing he said to me. He was like, "You want a glass of milk?" I was like, "What? Why do you have milk?" And it's like, oh, okay. So I grabbed this glass. And he goes, "No, not that one. I pissed in that one." He's driving 160 kilometers an hour in this busted old camper. So I got there.
Some pee and some milk.
Yeah, I got there, and I did a bunch of stupid. I did this program. I got a little touring thing. At the time I was still practicing singing, but in the woods. I didn't have a teacher.
Program? Was it
it was a summer opera program.
Okay.
There's kind of, it'd be there's a lot of training programs like that for acting too, but in opera they're often called pay to sings, where you'll do a full role with an orchestra, but you often have to pay some tuition. If you're one of the better ones, it's free.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did one of those, and I had a place to stay. Got a little job doing opera in schools. And then, which was funny because I remember doing that when it was such a terrible show and it was so humiliating doing it because you want to be doing big things. And we had to do it in a food court of a mall. And I distinctly remember people coming behind the set with trays of dirty dishes. Oh, sorry, I'm just going to throw this in the garbage. Keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah.
Well, outside, there's all these construction workers just looking at you like, what the fuck? Anyway, so I did that and then kind of stayed on my sister's couch in Edmonton and started to get my shit together. It took a long time.
At least you had her.
Yeah, well, that didn't last long.
Well,
she got sick of it pretty quick. Understandable.
Yeah, but at least you had some sort of support system.
Exactly.
Or some support.
Yeah. So when I wanted to get on the subject of bad times and how you deal with them, how you face adversity, how do you come out of something and, you come out the other side, hopefully better for it, but having learned those lessons. And I find I'm really drawn towards people that have had dark times, really dark times, because in my mind, I know that, okay, you've seen the darkness and you pushed away from it, which to me is a big, it says a lot about their character. And I'm always wary of people that are just super nice. Nothing's ever gone wrong and they're great. Because in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what if your life goes full fucking Book of Job? I'm not a religious person, but anybody who knows it, just everything goes wrong.
Yep.
If your life goes full Job, I don't know how you're going to react to it. Like when the zombies come, are you the guy that's going to be, you know, trying to kill us and take the resources? Or are you the person that's seen some shit, is experienced with it, and has built up a resistance to it and will act, you know, like we said, with composure and grace?
Right.
Which is why I love when I meet people like that we're criminals, we're bad people, and now they're out the other side.